Philosophy is often seen as something distant and abstract, a set of ideas locked away in dusty old books, debated in quiet university halls. But in reality, philosophy is one of the most practical and transformative tools we have. It helps us understand our place in the world, make sense of ethical dilemmas, and explore the deepest aspects of human experience. It's not just about asking questions, it's about how we live, how we think, and how we make meaning out of our lives. But where do we even begin this philosophical journey? One of the oldest and most fundamental questions in philosophy is, what is the nature of reality? When we look around us, at the sky, the trees, the people, even our own hands, we feel as though we're perceiving the real world directly. But how can we be certain that what we see is what truly exists? Is reality exactly as it appears to us, or is our perception just a filtered experience of something deeper? This leads us to René Descartes, one of the most influential philosophers in Western thought. Descartes famously declared, "Cogito, ergo sum," I think, therefore I am. With this simple phrase, he began a radical journey of doubt. He questioned everything, his senses, his beliefs, even the existence of the external world. What he discovered was that while everything else could be doubted, the very act of thinking was proof of his existence. The mind, in other words, became the one undeniable anchor in a sea of uncertainty. But Descartes also opened the door to a much deeper mystery. What if everything we experience is an illusion? This idea is at the heart of a school of thought known as idealism. According to idealist philosophers like George Berkeley, reality is not made up of material things, but of mental experiences. Berkeley famously argued that to be is to be perceived. In other words, nothing exists outside of our perception. The tree falling in the forest, if no one is there to hear it, perhaps it doesn't really fall at all. Of course, not everyone agrees. In contrast to idealism, realism asserts that there is an objective reality that exists independently of our perceptions. Realists argue that the world continues on, whether we are observing it or not. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around, it still makes a sound, because the world doesn't need us to exist. The tension between these two perspectives, that reality is constructed by the mind, or that it exists outside the mind, continues to shape philosophical debates to this day. So, if we can't be sure of the world out there, can we ever be sure of anything at all? This leads us to epistemology, the study of knowledge. What does it mean to know something? Can we trust our senses? Is knowledge something we discover or something we construct? Epistemology wrestles with questions about certainty, belief, and truth, and challenges us to consider the limits of human understanding. Immanuel Kant, a towering figure in this field, offered a profound insight. We can never know things as they are in themselves. Instead, we only know things as they appear to us, shaped by the faculties of our mind. According to Kant, our brains don't just passively receive information, they actively organize it. Time, space, and causality. These aren't features of the external world, but the structures through which we experience it. Reality, then, is always filtered through our human lens. But if our minds are the lens, can we ever truly see the world clearly? Can we break free from our own subjectivity? Or are we forever caught in a kind of philosophical echo chamber, hearing only the sound of our own thoughts reflected back at us? This question echoes through another major branch of philosophy, the debate over free will and determinism. Are we the authors of our own actions, or are our choices determined by causes beyond our control? Ancient thinkers who embraced determinism, like the Stoics, believed that every event, including human behavior, follows from prior causes. In this view, everything from the motion of the stars to our afternoon coffee choices is part of a great cosmic chain of events. If everything is determined, can we ever be held responsible for our actions? Or are we simply acting out a script written long before we were born? Enter existentialism, a philosophical movement that pushes back against determinism with fiery intensity. One of its key figures, Jean-Paul Sartre, famously declared, "Existence precedes essence." What he meant is that we are not born with a fixed nature or purpose. We create it ourselves. For Sartre, human beings are radically free. We are thrust into existence with no manual, no divine plan, and no guarantees. And in that freedom lies both our power and our burden. With freedom comes responsibility. If we are truly free, then we can't blame fate, society, or even our upbringing for the choices we make. This radical freedom is what Sartre called anguish. The unsettling realization that we are solely responsible for defining who we are. Which brings us to ethics. How should we live? What does it mean to live a good life? Throughout history, philosophers have offered many different answers to this question. Aristotle believed that the good life was about achieving eudaimonia, a state of flourishing or well-being. But this wasn't about wealth or fame. For Aristotle, flourishing meant living in accordance with virtue, cultivating qualities like courage, temperance, and wisdom. The more we practice these virtues, the more we align ourselves with reason, and the more fulfilled we become. Other philosophers have approached ethics differently. Utilitarians like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill believed that morality is about maximizing happiness and minimizing suffering. The right action, then, is the one that produces the greatest good for the greatest number. But this raises tricky questions. Is it always right to sacrifice one person's well-being for the sake of many? And who decides what counts as happiness? Then there are those who question whether we can ever agree on what is good at all. Moral relativists argue that right and wrong are not fixed, but depend on cultural norms and individual perspectives. What's considered virtuous in one society might be seen as immoral in another. In this view, there are no universal moral truths, only varying beliefs shaped by history, geography, and context. By contrast, moral absolutists maintain that some things are always right or wrong, no matter what. They argue that principles like justice, honesty, or respect for human dignity hold true across time and place, and that without such absolutes, morality becomes unmoored. Zooming out, we can also explore how these ethical ideas play out on a societal level. Social and political philosophy tackles questions about power, justice, and the organization of communities. What makes a government legitimate? Should individual freedom be sacrificed for collective security? What does a just society really look like? John Locke, for example, believed in natural rights, life, liberty, and property, and argued that the role of government is to protect these rights. He saw society as a contract. Citizens give up some freedoms in exchange for protection and order. Thomas Hobbes, on the other hand, had a darker view of human nature. He believed that without strong authority, society would descend into chaos, a war of all against all. For Hobbes, peace required a powerful ruler to keep people in check. Fast forward to modern times, and we find thinkers like John Rawls, who proposed a vision of justice based on fairness and equality. Rawls introduced the idea of the veil of ignorance, a thought experiment in which we design society without knowing our place in it. This forces us to create rules that are fair to everyone, not just the privileged. Martha Nussbaum has expanded on these ideas by emphasizing the importance of human capabilities, ensuring that all individuals have the opportunity to live full, meaningful lives. For her, justice isn't just about laws, it's about nurturing the potential of every person. And that leads us to one of the biggest philosophical questions of all. What is the meaning of life? For some, this is a religious or spiritual question. For others, it's deeply personal. But for philosophers, it's an ongoing inquiry. one with many competing answers. Socrates famously said that the unexamined life is not worth living. For him, meaning came through reflection, dialogue, and the pursuit of wisdom. Albert Camus took a different approach. He believed that life is inherently absurd, that we seek meaning in a universe that offers none. But instead of falling into despair, Camus urged us to rebel, to create our own meaning through action, creativity, and authenticity, to live with passion and integrity, even in the face of absurdity. In contrast, Plato believed in a higher realm of eternal forms, perfect, unchanging ideas that give meaning and structure to our world. For him, true understanding came through reason and philosophical inquiry, a process of remembering the truths our souls already know. But not all philosophy comes from the West. Buddhist philosophy, for example, offers a radically different take on the human condition. Rather than seeking meaning in permanence or personal identity, it encourages us to let go of attachments and recognize the impermanence of all things. Through mindfulness, compassion, and ethical living, we can free ourselves from suffering and find a different kind of peace. So what can we take away from all of this? Philosophy doesn't give us easy answers. It doesn't offer a single path to truth or a one-size-fits-all meaning. But that's what makes it so powerful. It teaches us to ask better questions. It helps us explore the world and ourselves with greater depth, nuance, and curiosity. Philosophy is not a destination. It's a journey, a lifelong conversation with ourselves and with others. It pushes us to examine what we believe, why we believe it, and how those beliefs shape our lives. Now, after exploring all of these deep and fascinating questions, it's clear that philosophy isn't just something you study, it's something you live. Every choice you make, every moral dilemma you face, every moment of self-reflection, all of it is philosophical. So, how do you approach life's big questions? Do you wonder about free will, truth, justice, or the meaning of existence? If these ideas sparked something in you, even a flicker of curiosity, then don't stop here. Keep exploring. Read the thinkers that challenge you, question your assumptions, share your insights with others. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of philosophy, hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves deep thinking, and subscribe for more philosophical explorations. Let me know in the comments. What's the most intriguing philosophical idea you've ever encountered? I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversation. And remember, question everything.